5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
You're listening to the GHT Overland podcast. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the GHT Overland podcast. We are excited to be here with you.
It is our favorite day of the week and our favorite thing to do. So yeah, thanks for downloading episode 101.
We think you will love this week's guests, all the way from Munich.
Well, we talked to them when they were in Arizona. Does that count?
Yeah.
They started overland travel with a rental car in Australia and took it from there.
As you will hear them say, you just need to go.
Anytime I hear that, I remember the wise words of Steve from Venturesome Overland. So I'm going with be smart, be wise.
Isn't that the same thing?
Be smart, be wise?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably. You're smarter than I am. But anyway, hey, don't get stuck in the weeds, making the perfect plans, building the perfect rig. Get your tail out the door and get on to the dusty road. So let's do a couple newish things and then mash down the listening pedal for this week's episode.
Mash down the listening pedal?
I don't know where this stuff comes from any more than you do. Anyway, Lisa, take it away for a little listener appreciation.
Oh, fun. Marcus sent in an email that was really nice. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. Along with sending in a few suggestions for future guests, Marcus wrote, "Thanks for getting a show like this in place. It is for sure one of the best shows in the overland scene."
Yeah.
Sounds like Marcus found us after the Heimerhofen episode with Carola and Stefano. Thank you, Marcus. We appreciate you taking the time to send us a note.
That we do.
Ooh, what's next?
Two more things real quick. Dan Greck of The Road Chose Me has a new book coming out. Dan was a lot of fun to talk with. His stories and experience are second to none. So if you're interested, you can find out more. The easiest way is to just jump on his website, theroadchoseme.com. He has a link to his Kickstarter page for release of his new book of part 2.
Next up is a worthwhile organization we just feel compelled to pass along. A humanitarian rescue and relief 501c3 nonprofit. Stronghold Rescue and Relief, an extremely compelling organization doing some of the toughest work in some of the darkest, ugliest conditions.
This is a group of former special operations warriors helping families that are caught in the crossfire of violent conflict. What they do and what their founder, Efren Matos, has done is beyond what we can describe. We just ask that you take a moment to learn for yourself and consider joining us in helping to support the work only trained, experienced professionals can do. On the web or social media, just look up Stronghold Rescue. Now, on to this week's episode, Lisa?
Yes.
You're ready?
Yes.
You want to mash down the listening pedal? Welcome and thank you for joining us on the GHT Overland podcast. This is where you get the greatest interviews and insights from overland travelers around the globe, learning from their stories and experiences as we interview overlanders from places like Australia, Africa, the Americas, Portugal, and today in Arizona. You will learn the basics to the advanced in overlanding, so buckle up and get ready for a new adventure. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lisa. Today's featured guests are Karin and Christian, who are overlanding from Munich, Germany, currently in the Mojave Desert in a well-built Toyota Land Cruiser HZJ78.
With blog posts going back to Namibia and Botswana in 2010, we are super excited to have Karin and Christian join us today. Without further ado, Karin and Christian, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Hello, guys.
So tell us a little when and how you guys got started overlanding.
Well, that started already a couple of years back. As you said, we were traveling the last 10 to 15 years all over the globe, mainly with rental cars, and got excited when we were a couple of years back in Australia. So in 2015, we decided to take a break and traveled 7 months in Australia from Perth to Sydney in an own Toyota Land Cruiser at that time. And that was really where it all started. So getting back into the normal life. After that trip, we decided this cannot be the end. So that's basically then when we decided to start this trip where we are now on since 1 year, basically.
And I was going through your website. Your blog is really awesome. It goes back quite a bit. There's a lot of really good information in there.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so where all have you guys been? You've been to Australia, you're from Munich, and then you've obviously been through the U.S. Can you give us kind of a quick little glimpse of all the different places you've been?
Before we got really into overlanding, we spent of regular vacation trips in South America, Central America, as you mentioned it, Australia, in the southern part of Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe. But as soon as we now got into overlanding on this trip, basically, we decided we want to leave home by car and get back by car, so once around the Northern Hemisphere. And when leaving Germany, of course, it has a short stop in Austria, heading through Greece, Turkey, which was quite impressive, and then into beautiful Iran, and from there through Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, you name it, all those former Soviet Union countries.
More road, and I think it was my idea to start with a car at home, not with a flight.
I think it was your idea. So traveling the whole way up to Vladivostok in the far east of Russia, and from there we shipped then over to Vancouver in Canada, British Columbia, and headed south for the winter, as we were not so keen on spending the whole winter in Canada or in the northern part of the US.
Oh, that's pretty smart.
Yep, go where it's warm.
Follow the heat.
Yeah.
It feels wise.
But during the night, it's good temperature as well to sleep. It's not too hot. During the day, it's good to go for a hike. Oh, it's not too bad at the moment.
Yeah, was the right decision being here in Arizona now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, warmer than it is cool. We're pretty cool here. So do you guys generally spend like a lot of time planning each leg of your trips, or would you recommend to our listeners to spend either more or less time planning with their trips?
It really depends, I would say. We started basically 1 year ago. We planned for 1 year. More intense cycles and sometimes a bit less intense, really heavily depending, for example, on visa. The easy one, for example, when we were 2015 in Australia for the 7 months, there was just a couple of weeks planning, as that was a pretty simple thing.
Easier, it's just one island, and you'd have so many points for organization. That's much easier. I think it's depending from the target. What do you want? So do you want, or do you need to cross several countries or not?
Vaccinations, for example, that was the same, because you need lead times for that one, partially depending on what you need, depending on the destination you are going. But in the end, if you would ask me for recommendation, or us, we would always say get going in the end. You can, there are so many people planning and preparing cars and the rigs for and never leave home in the end. So get going.
Yeah, that's true.
I think if the car is fixed more or less, then you have to go. It's I think at the end it's the same with a house. It's never perfect. And just start,
Yep, so get going, but do your planning for border crossings, visas, vaccinations, any of that important stuff, and making sure where you're going to be safe, right?
Yes, I agree.
Can you give us some details on your Land Cruiser and any name you may have given it?
The name is very simple. It's just Campy. So there was no better idea so far. So far it's just Campy. And I don't know about
we
the
thought,
technical details. Maybe your turn.
yeah, we thought we find a name on the way, which has not happened yet. Now, the technical side, maybe if you're interested in that, you mentioned it already. It's a Land Cruiser HZJ 78. So it's a 4.2 liter diesel engine, quite rare in North America, if available at even. And in terms of conversion it into a camper or into an RV, we had to cut off the roof, and now we have a fixed high top. So that we have a nice and cozy and warm living space, even in the cold weather or when it rains. That was our decision over a pop-up roof, which many people are doing. But for us, it was important to have always this dry space when you wake up in the morning.
But for sure, with a disadvantage regarding the height. So our car is much higher than the normal car.
Yeah, so if you want to ship it into a container, it's a nerve-wracking exercise.
But I don't know why.
Does it fit?
Men love it.
Does it fit into a container if you're going to ship?
It fits into a high cube when we remove the wheels, and we have container wheels which a friend of ours organized. So they are 40 centimeter aluminium wheels in diameter and 2 centimeters wide. I'm sorry, I don't have inches now in mind.
Okay.
And we can use them instead of the normal wheels. And then we have a tiny little buffer of 3 centimeters to get it into a high cube.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's a very tricky thing to change the wheels. And I think both of us were a little bit nervous at this time. It's not so easy, but at the end, it works.
In the end, it was all calculation only, and we have never tried it before, so we had no test run. So when doing that in Vladivostok, we were really done with all our nerves when it in the end fitted in.
It was a lot of alcohol in the night to celebrate that.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, and what year is the vehicle?
It's a 2016 model.
Okay.
I'm just trying to visualize it going in the high cube.
Putting the wheels on it?
Yeah.
That would be
having to
crazy.
take wheels off and putting different ones on.
When you want to see that in full action, you can check it out from Instagram. There we have a short video where we drive it into the high cube container, and I think you can hear all the relief in the end when Karin is,
including my happiness at the end.
That's great. So as you're driving in, are you like sucking it in, like?
Yeah,
I would be doing
feel
that
somehow.
What is the one thing you value the most, either on or in your vehicle?
If you ask me, it's the heater. And on a cold night, it's a heater inside. So, but
it is really a good question, because there's not that one thing. It all depends on the day. As Karin said, it's the heater on a cold day.
You have to know at the background, at the beginning, to build the furniture of our car, there was a discussion about the heater. And Christian was convinced we need one, and my opinion was just for emergency reason we need one. But I don't know how often
when we were in Washington State, mid of November, it was a daily exercise, no worries. No, but it really depends on the day. I would say on a very hot day, coming back from a hike, our outside shower is absolutely the one thing we value most. Yeah. And when we got stuck in a frozen water hole in the Black Rock Desert in Nevada on Christmas Day, I would say, if you would have asked me there, the most valued things are our front and rear diff locks on that day.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. What kind of heater do you use, and is it diesel or is it propane?
Yeah, we have a diesel.
That's a diesel, yeah.
So we wanted to have a limited amount of material that we use. So basically, gas is for us propane is only for cooking, and diesel is what we use for the heater and of course for the engine.
Okay. Have you ever had any issues with condensation?
The last couple of weeks when we were really in winterly conditions where we had -10, -15 Celsius in the night, there we had a bit condensation issues, but never before and not after now.
Yeah.
Okay.
They must have been in the Pacific Northwest.
They probably were.
What
state were you in?
We were in wonderful Washington State.
Yep, there you go. We need to do a better job of keeping track of where people are so we can invite them over or something and do interviews in person. We seem to always miss people just after they've come through Washington. So anything that you originally packed that you never used and ended up removing from your setup?
Definitely the sidewalls for our awning. So we packed it in.
Okay.
We were sure we will need it when we stay a couple of days somewhere, and we never packed them out.
No. No.
Interesting.
Just waste of space at the end so far.
I'm pretty sure we will never use them.
What are some of the top destinations, like if you were to pick out 2 or 3 places that really kind of stick out to you that you enjoyed for whatever reason, what would be those places, and can you give us a little detail on what made them so special for you?
I think for me the big surprise was Iran. You for sure you know some stories in advance and regarding government and people and so on. But at the end, I learned it's unbelievable kindness of the people, and for sure there's a real charm. It's totally different life for us, but it was a great kindness of the people, and you have clear to separate government and the locals. So I think at the end that was the biggest surprise regarding that for me. It was Iran. I don't know. How about you?
I think you said one point which I fully agree on. That's what we learned. You have to separate in general between the people living in the country and the officials in the country. So Iran, yes, I agree. For me, there were two more countries actually which were a big surprise. One was Russia. So it's the sheer size of the country. The further east you get, the more wild the nature gets. But on the other hand, people are so friendly. Even when you don't speak Russian, they are happy to help you out. But on the other hand, they are also happy to leave you alone if you just want to have a nice campsite somewhere in the forest. So in that sense, Russia was completely different than we expected it to be. And we said already it will not be our last time in that country. And for me personally, Tajikistan has amazing landscapes. And it's also this thing that the closer you get to the Afghanistan, for example, the higher the mountains are getting, the Hindu Kush mountains there. And again, for me, Tajikistan was a bit of a mix between the hospitality in Iran and people being a bit more reserved and leaving you alone if you want to be like that. But all in all, completely amazing people, friendly hospitality, and that combined with the landscapes.
Yeah, that's true. The landscape from Tajikistan was very unique, I guess.
Yeah, at least for us.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So if we can touch on Iran just a little bit, every time somebody mentions that now, I get a little nervous with our friends Mark and Jolie that were in prison there for a little bit. What did you guys do to make sure that you felt safe going into that country and you were able to enjoy the time, the people, and the place?
I would say we have one big benefit. That's what became extremely fast clear for us in Iran is we have a German passport.
That was a big surprise, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big surprise, but that was extremely helpful. So with a German passport, that was halfway avoiding trouble, I would say.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the other thing is, I mean, we never stayed in the cities, for example. Of course, we visited the cities, went through the bazaars and looked and enjoyed all the culture. But the nights we always spent outside in the middle of nowhere. The tricky thing is you, of course, cannot be always that 100% sure when you're in Iran that you are that much in the middle of nowhere than you believe. But we actually never got into trouble with officials when we were there in the nowhere. There was sometimes shepherds coming by who were wondering what you are doing there. We had once the police coming also by because a local saw us and was unsecure what we are doing. But
but on the end, we have to be fair. There are also some other stories for sure. Maybe we were lucky that nothing happened.
That's why I said.
But yeah, for sure, we also heard about other stories.
Yeah,
for us, it wasn't a problem. Yeah,
I mean that's exactly the thing. You can never be 100% sure, and there's always a bit this kind of a mixed feelings also on our side when it comes to Iran. But that's what we said also. We need to separate between the officials and the people living there. The people are absolutely friendly. On the officials, you can put a question mark, of course.
But on the other hand, to give you a bad example, I hope it's okay. So the first months with all this, critical countries in what is Vorteile?
Advantages.
But at the end, they broke our car in US.
Yeah, that was where we made the first bad experience, actually.
So we saw, okay, now all these critical countries, we made very well, and now we are in the safe US and in Oregon. So they broke up our car, and they stole nearly 80% of our camera equipment, wallets, credit cards, everything. So this so far to the point how you can be sure regarding the safety. Yeah.
So coming back on Iran, also in that context, what Karin just said, we talked about that also afterwards, after that incident happened in Oregon. And we were pretty sure that the probability this would happen in a country like Iran is rather low compared to one of the countries we are in now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, that was in my own home state, so I apologize. I will... If I could talk to those, that's just horrible. But that's some really good insight. It sounds like the people, the place, the landscape in Iran is amazing if you can forego the politics and all the government stuff. It's the people, it's the place, is a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Yes. So in terms of safety, and that's what I meant, it's not always 100% clear where is a military area, where is not a military area. But at least for us, it never became an issue, and we tried to stay away from the military areas as much as possible.
And also what we learned, a very good thing is in some of these such countries, there's an official email address where you can report corrupt policemen. They can write an email. There was a police who wants illegal money from my side. That's a good thing, and therefore maybe it's
interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think in Tajikistan and in even in Kazakhstan they had it, where there is an email address you can report bribery or people asking for money for you.
Yeah.
Because they, of course, want to get rid of those issues.
That's pretty amazing.
And how have you set things up for cooking?
As flexible as possible, I would say. So we have a 2-flame gas stove, which we mainly use outside for cooking. That's our main cooking setup. That we cook in the back door, so to say. Have a table there. But when the weather is really bad or when it's really windy, then we, of course, also can use it inside. But it's mainly built for cooking outside.
Yeah, but it's not fixed, so we are flexible to put it in or outside.
And then where do you store that? So I saw that and I thought that's a pretty brilliant idea because then you can cook pretty much anywhere you want. Do you have like a specific shelf or a cupboard that you're able to put it in?
It's in a cupboard. So that was in
Okay.
general one of the things that was important for us, that everything has a fixed place in our rig. Because there was a learning from previous trips where we were handling boxes and things, and you always had to basically take everything out of the car when you were looking for a spoon, literally. So that's why we said everything has to have a fixed place.
That's typical German thing. So every
I would say it's annoying when you travel a couple of months and you have to do that every day. But when you call it German, well, then it's German.
Sometimes those are the Germans. Germans want that, but everything have a fixed place.
So the cooking, you like that setup? There's nothing you would change about it?
I think in principle, no, but I think we would modify the place inside, or to optimize the place to prepare some food inside. So it's not the best way. Outside is much more comfortable at the moment. I
think we would keep the 2 flame stove for outside, and we would have a fixed 1 flame stove or so for inside, because we had more windy days and more bad weather or cold days than we expected when we made up our mind.
But at the end, it's a question of space.
Yeah, it's only a Land Cruiser in the end.
Yeah.
And what's a favorite meal or recipe you enjoy while traveling?
There's one thing we did not mention on the cooking setup. We would carry a oven which we use to cook on the fire. So I would say in general, using a Dutch oven to do some spaghetti bolognese or something like that, that's or beef stew, that's amazing. If you want a real recipe, we started doing our own Asian noodles, I would say, on this trip.
That's this instant part. So it's. Do you want the recipe?
Absolutely.
Really?
Like if you're making your own Asian noodles with German spoons, I want to know how you do that.
You can also use a fork. It's with onion, vegetables like carrots, onions, broccoli, whatever you get. Cut it in very small pieces to reduce the cooking time.
Yeah, that's why Karin has to do it, because when I do it, it's quite sick pass.
Awful. And with some Asian noodles, something like that, which is also good to reduce the cooking time. And just in
fry them, basically fry the vegetables in
with
the pan.
a little bit of oil, and then add the noodles with soya sauce and the sweet chili sauce, and if you want coriander.
I don't know what coriander is in English, but sorry for that.
You will find it out.
Coriander is still coriander.
Maybe some chili.
Yeah.
Coriander is coriander.
Is it? Okay.
That's
And then when you're like me, you can also add some chili to your personal taste on it. The good thing is when something is left over, you have a nice salad for lunch the next day.
Yeah, you can. It's good. You can eat it hot or cold.
Nice.
That's a good thing. So lazy people like us prepare some parts for 2 days.
So how do you guys generally take care of laundry as you're traveling?
We were doing a lot of laundry by hand on the first part of the trip, all over Asia and Russia. And since we are here, we basically use the famous laundromats, which you can find everywhere across the country in the US and in Canada.
Yeah, that's much easier.
And on the hygiene aspect, do you have a shower and toilet setup, or what's your recommendation for simple and hygienic on the road?
Can you define hygienic? No, just kidding. No, we have a shower and we have a toilet set up. Because of the limited space in our Land Cruiser, we have only an outside shower with cold water. So that does not work that well in the winter in Washington, what we talked about before. But now here in Arizona, it's amazing having a cold shower. So what we also used were then, of course, truck stops, or we learned about swimming pools where you can use the shower in the winter. But our main shower still is our own outside shower. And then we have a small toilet in the car, which I would say, use every now and then. But when you're in the middle of the desert, of course...
you can't tell that.
We have a spade.
Does the desert absorb it pretty quick?
Yes.
When you dig deep enough, yes. No, but that's it in practical terms. And of course, we have a water basin in the car, so we can use the normal stuff like teeth brushing and all that without having a need for our shower. It's pretty much like at home. It's the biggest issue, I would say, is you always have to fill the water tank and make sure you have enough water.
Yeah. So overall, is there anything you'd change about that current setup?
Warm water.
For a warm shower.
Yeah,
or just to wash your hands,
absolutely.
Right?
That's on the improvement list.
No, for the shower is just sometimes it's just breathtaking.
Yeah, I would say a shower tent and a small warm water boiler will be on the list for the next version of the car.
Shower tent, because there was one thing in Iran. I thought we were in the middle of nowhere and I had a shower. And nearly at the end, there was a motorcycle crossing with two people in Iran, and I was still naked. And I think I haven't imagined regarding the height of our car, so it wasn't an option to climb up naked in the car. I was just taking my towel and waving. There was nothing else to do.
But the guys were very nice. They passed by and came back half an hour later to say hello and ask if we need something and if everything is okay.
Everything is okay. Yeah. So sometimes it tend for the shower. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and warm water, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about the number one biggest challenge you've had to overcome on the road.
Well, we mentioned it already. It sounds a bit weird for somebody who has done it a couple of times, but getting this car into a container is really something we see as the number one challenge we had so far. You might have expected something different, but seriously, that was because, as said, we have never practiced it. We just did the calculations and we had 3 centimeters buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a tight fit. It's like building a rocket and going to Mars for the first time, making sure that all the calculations work.
Would not go that far, but it gets very close. At least it felt like this for me because calculations.
Gosh, I would be holding my breath the entire time, I'm pretty sure.
I was changing the wheels. That was not helpful holding the breath.
True. So border crossings, what tips do you have in preparing for them, and any other insights that you have that you think might be helpful for other people as they prepare to go through border crossings maybe for the first time?
I think sometimes expect the unexpected. So from the time there were a range from 10 minutes to 5, 6,
7 hours.
7 hours. You never know. For us, our strategy was in main part to be there very early to have enough buffer for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
nobody wants to stay the whole night at the border, and that's one of the thing which was very well to be very early at the border.
I would say that's the number one advice we can give for border crossings is plan enough time and come early in the morning. First of all, the officials are not yet annoyed because of stupid tourists or whatever happened. And secondly, depending on the country, you cannot predict how much time it will take you.
Yeah.
From Iran to Turkmenistan, we have a box at the back of the car which is filled with stuff, and he started pulling stuff out there. So I just told him, well, I said, well, listen to me. When you take it out, you put it back again. And then he looked at me and said, well, I think it's okay. You can close it. So
I think it should be a compromise. A compromise. Don't be too shy at the end of the day. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, but as I said, very important, take them serious.
Yeah.
Any specific border experiences that really stand out that our listeners could learn from?
From my perspective, crossing from Iran to Turkmenistan, that was an absolutely outstanding one. We were 3 cars on that day, and it took 7 hours.
Hours.
What?
3 cars took 7 hours to cross one border.
Oh, I so hope they packed a lunch.
Ooh. I wonder if you're allowed to return to your vehicle at lunchtime to make a sandwich.
I thought you were supposed to stay with your vehicle.
I don't know. I know when we went to Canada and we got stuck at that border, they made us go into the office.
Really? You have to bring this up?
It's a funny story.
At my expense.
True. If you ever want to hear a funny story and you see us somewhere, just ask about our Canada trip.
Nonetheless, let's move on.
What a great time with Karin and Christian. A couple of times the connection got a little wonky on us, so any weird blips, our apologies. We did our best to cut and splice things together.
Garbled talking is never fun to listen to. Lots of great stories to learn from.
So, what do you think about Iran as a favorite place?
All opinions aside, I think it was great that they were willing to dive deeper with more questions.
Hey, what about Karin mentioning an email address to report corrupt officials? I've not heard of that before.
I like that.
I don't think that anybody's ever mentioned that before.
I don't think so either. Where did they get the email address from?
You know, we totally forgot to ask that, so I circled back around and asked them, and they got it off from iOverlander, the source of all great things.
Good to know.
Yep, really good resource. Ton of great information. Absolutely loved it. Next week, more great information, more great stories, more from Karin and Christian, so hang on to your hats for 1 week.
It'll go by fast.
Boy, does it. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. Your support of the podcast does mean the world to us. If you'd like to help support the show, possibly scoring a stainless tumbler or a t-shirt, take a look at the options while you're there. And if you'd like to send your questions, suggestions, or amazing feedback, you can send it to ghteoverlandpodcast@gmail.com.
We'd love it if you'd connect with us on social media at ghteoverland.com. Be sure to share this episode with your friends who enjoy travel and adventure. Overlanding travel is all about seeing the most amazing places on Earth and, of course, new food and new drinks. We'd greatly appreciate your time of a quick rate and review of the GHT Overland podcast. It makes a ginormous difference for us to show up on all the podcast platforms.
That was a lot of P's.
Whew, you're telling me. GHT is showing gratitude, being humble, and having the tenacity to tackle your dreams. Thank you, and we will see you next Thursday for part 2 of the GHT Overland podcast with Karin and Christian of Wildlife Moments. Bye.